This is the Effing One Podcast, Australia's only Formula One podcast with Adam and Luke.
G'day and welcome to the Effing One Podcast, the only podcast that you're allowed to listen to during a thunderstorm. The podcast that digs deeper to bring you more made-up nonsense than any other Formula One podcast. But I will give you more factual, real-life data than any press conference by the Australian government and the CDC put together. And it's the only podcast that doubles as a vaccine. One single dose listen of this podcast will prevent the spread of laughter, joy, and happiness. And if that doesn't work, listen to another booster episode. If by any chance you have an adverse reaction to this podcast, tough tits. You knew it was experimental, and you're on your own. The only caveat is our puke-free guarantee. So while listening to this exceptionally made, hastily thrown together podcast, you hear something that managed to void the content of your stomach via the mouth and or nose, Adam will procure transport, knock on your door, to clean you up and dry clean your soiled belongings. I do recommend you listen to this podcast in the same way as I record it, sitting securely in your favourite chair, a light breeze gently blowing on your exposed genitalia, right in the middle of a busy intersection.
Right, stop that. Silly.
Oh, fair enough. It's time to dive head first, heads down, into this 2022 season, race 1 of 23. And in this bag is the Ferrari have pranced into a 1-2 for the first one. And since Seb and Leclerc in Singapore 2019 was the last time Ferrari had a 1-2, and it's also the last time Ferrari had a win. An interesting race. The Red Bull racing cars not making to the end of the Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly car going up in flames. Apparently not related to those issues. Red Bull Racing had a fuel pump issue and Gasly's just burnt into flames. I think the Red Bull said there was a vacuum, that there was the right amount of fuel in there, but it wasn't sucking from the right area. We've all had that experience where you just don't get a suck in the right area. I don't know how they miss, but they do, and it's sad. But yeah, Leclerc winning ahead of Sainz for 1-2. Then you got Hamilton, Russell, Magnussen in P5, Bottas, Ocon, and all those people that tipped. I saw your tips, and you were tipping Mick Schumacher to beat Magnussen, and you were wrong, and you'll probably have to suck his balls too. So we got Ocon in 7th, 8th, Tsunoda, Alonso 9th, and Zhou Guan Yu, I think they're calling him that now instead of Guan Yu Zhou, so we'll go with Zhou Guan Yu. I'll just call him Zhouy. He finished his debut race with 1 point. A decent drive by the Chineseman. The fastest lap is by Charles Leclerc with a 1 minute 34.570. McLaren doing the fastest pit stop with a 2.31 second for those you playing home. And Charles Leclerc got driver of the day. Now that's the ordinary awards. That's the awards at F1, and you, the people at home, the vast millions of people vote online. But the real interesting awards that we give out on this podcast has been hand-whittled by producer Pete, and he's still on board. Adam may have ditched the bin with his reasons of family and loving them and taking care of them and wanting to spend genuine time with them. Whatever that means, I'm not sure. I'm not a man with children. I don't know what that love is, as so many of you do. But I don't. I know the love of a good pizza and a nice lasagna and that gentle breeze going up my beautiful Arabian coat, which is called a throbe. I'm wearing the same one as I did last week. They're wearing the same stuff in Saudi Arabia as they do in Bahrain. So I'm keeping it on because I hired it for 2 weeks. So I'm going to wear it for 2 weeks. The F1 Podcast Award. The F1 Podcast Award is for making Formula One great again. So an individual, a team, it could be me, it could be Michael Massey, it could be anyone in Formula One that makes the weekend especially good and exciting, and we're giving it to the Haas. Now, for a team that didn't score points and who've been generally shit. This new generation of car, the Ferrari grunt that is betrothed upon them, and Alfa Romeo, they managed to make the most out of it, score a handful of points with Magnussen, and the Danish Viking is back on getting everyone to get on their knees and lick his balls clean, and so they should. And the next award is the UGE Day Award. It's for wasting everyone's time in Formula One. And now, no team has dropped so significantly as this team. The team that was fourth in the Constructors' Championship had their own 1-2. The only 1-2 of 2021. That's right, it's McLaren. The absolute dog's breakfast of the 2022 season so far. And we're giving the UGE Day Award for wasting everyone's time, Daniel Ricciardo's time. Imagine if poor Oscar Piastri got his debut in that piece of shit. Who knows what's going on at McLaren. They seem to have some issues with their braking, which has interfered with their ride height, which is, it's just basically, it's a piece of shit. The porpoising, a lot of people have changed their ride height, which is causing a lack of downforce and increasing time. The closer you are to the ground, the faster you're going to go, and the less drag you're going to have and more downforce. The higher you go, you won't have that porpoising as much. So that seems to be the struggles, but I think the aerodynamic flow on from the front brakes backwards over the car has seemed to cause some instability or airflow not going into the places it was originally designed for. I'm sure when they get some cooler Grand Prix, when they head back or head to Melbourne even, you could get some cooler conditions that might be favourable to their previous design of brakes. And the next award is the Green Award. It's for thinking about the environment. You may retire early, you may finish from the race early, you may not be able to burn up all your fuel, use all your tyres or break all the equipment. So that's where you're thinking the environment. You're being carbon not quite neutral yet, but you're thinking about the environment. Like, you know what, if we just pull out of the race now, we'll save some fuel and we'll do the right thing for the environment. It's a very green thinking award. And this week is going to go to Red Bull Powertrains for the they were in the back of the AlphaTauri. They're also in the back of the Red Bull Honda, which is the Red Bull Powertrain. They're not considered Honda. They've taken over the development of that engine, and the engines are frozen now for at least this year. I'm pretty sure it's going on a little bit longer than that, but this year they're frozen. They can't do anything. Mercedes looks like they're a little bit down on power. All Mercedes teams are a little bit lower outside of the manufacturer team. You look at McLaren, Williams, they seem to be lacking a little bit of speed, a little bit of grunt from those cars. Not so much from the Ferrari cars. They are producing a fair bit of woof. And looking forward to seeing a ding-dong battle like we saw up the front with Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc on laps 17, 18. And there was another one not long after that got Leclerc the win, got him out in a comfortable position before the safety car came out late in the race. Listen, that safety car, I don't know what Max Verstappen was thinking. The position that he was in, there was no way he thought that he could get a jump from an inside of Charles Leclerc. Charles going to take off and then get a perfectly straight drive out of that last corner. And all Max has done is just, I don't know. I think his intimidatory tactics of let's get beside him like he did with Lewis. And I think Lewis should have kept him on the inside until you had a right-hand corner, like what Charles Leclerc did. Once he had that last corner, Max was on the inside. His apex and racing line is completely different. That's where Carlos Sainz is like, sweet, I can get a run on this. And it wasn't a good ending for Max anyway, with the issues he had with his steering, and then his fuel pump issue that also hampered Checo on the final lap of the race. Red Bull come away with nothing. They give up a position to Lewis Hamilton, who will now sit third, and as Sean Kelly pointed out, it is the greatest points gap between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in Lewis's favour than all of last year. Nico Hulkenberg is the Hulk. He is back with Aston Martin, Cognizant, Aramco, F1 team, Green Machine. I don't know. The lengthy name that they are. He's back this weekend. The Hulk is back. I'm very excited. Sebastian Vettel is still wrapped up in bed with the spicy cough, COVID. The next award, let's move on to Pastor Maldonado Award for dangerous driving. We're going with Esteban Ocon for spinning Schumacher at the start of the race. Ocon went and apologised with him later. Very nice of him to say, hey, very sorry. But yeah, Schumacher just seems like, he'll get his points. He'll get his opportunity soon. And it seems that the Haas can handle this track. Maybe it'll handle pretty well in Jeddah as well in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The Likert Incentive Award for the best overtaking manoeuvre, and I'm giving it to Charles Leclerc on Max Verstappen. Great move 3 times. Did the same move 2 times in a row, and one on the inside, one on the outside, and then Max went a little bit too deep into turn 1, and Charles could easily get the switcheroo done before turn 2. So congratulations, Leclerc. You'll get the Likert Incentive Award, expertly made by our producer here, producer Pete, who, listen, he's been busy. He's got some free time, as have I. We're both now unemployed thanks to these recent rules that our government have put out. And so he's got plenty of time to... The amount of detail that has gone in to this award, the Likert Incentive Award, there is a massive large tongue. It's at least 12 foot high, and he has sculpted this tongue, which actually it's a perfect replica of Adam's tongue, and I look forward to carrying that around and giving Charles Leclerc this one in person when I get a chance to see him. The next medal is the Speckled Gym Medal. Now, it's a 3-2-1 voting system. Last year we had Max Verstappen take it out by point. The year before, Daniel Ricciardo got it for just being a general good person and embodying the spirit of our dearly departed Speckled Jim, our fighting cock, our rooster that went into the ring 127 times and not won one. He won one. A solitary fight that he won when the other rooster managed to fall over and have a cardiac arrest. But that's a win. A win's a win. And he embodied the spirit of this podcast. He was the only way that we could create revenue. And it's a shame that we lost Speckled Jim in that training incident where Pete and Adam were just chatting away, turning their back on the one-time champion Speckled Jim. Most people don't know that. That fight was actually for a championship battle. He then lost that championship belt, which is a little belt that goes around his waist. The very next fight, Speckled Jim lost that battle. Just like he lost the battle with a training incident with the Dippy Bird, which unfortunately took his life way too soon, but sure did make him a wonderful tenderized honey chicken, which we cooked up later that night. The Speckled Gym Medal goes 3-1 votes. It's kind of like a best on ground, like a Brownlow medals, or like a VIP or an MVP, as you have in other categories around the world. This is 3 votes go to Charles Leclerc, 2 votes to Kevin Magnussen, and 1 to Guan Yu Zhou Guan Yu. Zhou Guan Yu, well done. The last award is the So we're giving the Your Shit award to Nicholas Latifi for being just, well, shit. He was massively outqualified by his teammate who's had some time off from Formula 1 before coming back to fill in the role at Williams that was left by George Russell. And Latifi, he's just wasting his parents' money on driving a Formula 1 car. And listen, mate, you need to up your game if you want to stay in F1, because I'm not sure if Daddy's happy with spending that kind of amount of money to see that mediocre display. So congratulations, you win the Your Shit award this week. And I like to think of Nicholas Latifi as kind of like a non-playing character in a video game, or an NPC. For those of you who know that term, that slang, he's kind of like the ghost car. He's he's just there or thereabouts. He's not a real player in the game. So hopefully this weekend that Latifi can get one up on Albon. I know there's some tips heavily for Latifi, but geez, you've underestimated how shit he is. And that's why he gets the Your Shit award. And we didn't really have any big whingers for the Horner Whinge Award. So we're going to hold back on that award until we get a really good spray. I know Max was on the radio complaining quite a bit, but I think some of those complaints were pretty valid considering the steering issues he had and the power issue that ended his race. So I think when it's just generally whingy, that's when we'll actually polish that award off. Pete's only made one, and it's kind of like a recycled one. So the one who wins it the weekend before will then pass it on to the next one at the next race. We've got the Third Championship. So this is the most exciting championship in Formula One. Not so much last year because Nikita Mazepin was very shit and won the Third Championship in a shit slide. So it's the reverse championship. If you finish first in a Formula One race, you get 25 points. If you finish last in the Formula One race, you get negative 25 points towards the Third Championship. So the negative 25 points goes to the Gas Man, negative 18 to Mad Max, the Tijuana Tussler, negative 15. The talented Nico Hulkenberg, he's back, and negative 12. Latifi, negative 10. Chuck Norris, negative 8. The personality, Daniel Ricciardo, he's negative 6. The TIE Fighter, Alexander Albon, negative 4. Daddy's Boy Stroll, negative 2. And Junior Schumacher finishing in 11th place. So he gets negative 1 points for him. That is Bahrain. Great start. Good bit of racing. Probably a little bit too early to say if the new regulations have changed the side-by-side action or whether these cars can follow quicker. There was a lot of overtaking. There was a whole heap of stuff going on. Look at the onboard stuff on the YouTube on F1. You'll be able to see a variety of really good overtakes, especially Zhou Guanyu. He did a fantastic job on his debut race, picking them off one by one. And then let's jump on in towards the Jeddah Grand Prix and Saudi Arabia this weekend. It's a little bit windy there at the moment. Some of the F2 cars were having a bit of trouble with it, and I'm wondering if it's going to impact Free Practice 1, which will be coming up very shortly. We've got the tyres this weekend are the tyres C2, C3, C4. So they are the hard, medium, and softs. Now they are the middle range of the 5 that Pirelli have available. The track it's a beautiful street circuit. It's 308.45 kilometer race distance, 50 laps. The circuit length is 6.174 kilometers of racing bitumen, close walls. You saw the accidents that have happened last year in the fast sections. It's an incredibly fast track. The fastest lap is a 1 minute 30.734 by Lewis Hamilton, the first time they had the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix last year. So looking forward to a humdinger of a Grand Prix. Now, I gave you a random stat, and I'm going to give you two of this. So this is direct from Pirelli. The minimum starting pressures on the slick tyres, the front is 23.5 psi. I know, very riveting point. And 21.0 psi on the rear. This may change after Free Practice 2 if there's a consensus and all the teams and Pirelli go, listen, we can change the minimum PSI, they will. But as a guide going into it, that's what it is. The camber limit on the front is 3.25 degrees and the rear 2 degrees. And that is a bit of the stats going into the Jeddah Grand Prix. The times where you can watch this weekend's race, it's a few hours later than last weekend's race. Auckland, New Zealand, 6 a.m. Monday morning. Sydney, Australia, 4 a.m. Right here in Brisbane, Queensland, 3 a.m. That's a tough one. Adelaide, 3:30 a.m. Perth, 1 a.m. Kathmandu, Nepal, 10:45 p.m. Helsinki in Finland, that is at 8 p.m. Stockholm, Sweden, 7 p.m. London, England, 6 p.m. Montevideo, Uruguay, That's right, Uruguay. 2 p.m. if you're watching in Montevideo there. United States, New York, 1 p.m. and Los Angeles, Sunday, 10 a.m. You don't have to get up so early, so you're very, very lucky. Enjoy that. The weather, as I said, a little bit windy. It's looking like it's going to be fine. Top of 26, top of 30 on Saturday, Sunday, top of 33 and sunny. And we've come up with the Making Formula One Great Again, the Effing One podcast, because that's what we're about here, making Formula One great again. And listen, the best way to do it, I think, moving forward for the sport, for the event, for everything else going on, I think it's another page from IndyCar. Now, Scott Mclaughlin, after his debut win, wasn't his first year, it was his first win in the IndyCar series. He won the first race in St. Petersburg, which is not in Russia, it's in Florida. And a fantastic win for him. He nearly won the second race. He came second behind Joseph Newgarden. But after the first race, he showed and shared some data from his smart Whoop, which is, he's got a little ring on his finger that monitors his heart rate throughout the Indy Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. And he showed the statistics on his Twitter. And I'm like, this is what F1 needs. Now, what I want to know the data of, I want to see drivers' temperatures, especially when it gets to, Mark Webber used to swallow a temperature little pill. It would go into his stomach and it would sit in him throughout the Singapore Grand Prix. I believe his temperature got up to around 39, which is a very, very serious body temperature, can cause brain damage, which probably did for some drivers. But a lot of drivers, they tend to train in hot conditions prior to the Singapore Grand Prix, so their body is used to working under duress and under that heat, especially the humidity of those regions. And so they are well prepared, but just to show us the live data, go, hey, we're on board with Charles Leclerc, and he is sitting at 38 degrees or he's sitting at 36 or wherever he's chilling at. And we can see his heart rate. Heart rate would be good to see. You could see them all on the grid. This is what their heart rate is. Are they really anxious? Are really excited to start the race? Or are they just fucking cool as a cucumber? I know they showed some data. I think it was Mick Doohan back in the day. And his heart rate was incredibly low at the very start of a Grand Prix when the lights were about to go out. Very cool, calm, and collected. A man who knew what was underneath him and how to get it moving. So I want to see their temperatures, their heart rates. I want to know if they've pissed their pants. And also want to know if any of the drivers are driving, just like Seb does, with a constant erection. Now, that's pretty easy to manage. I'm sure you have a little green light that goes on and go, yep, there's a bit of an erection going on down there. They could have just made a really nice overtake, or, like we said with Sebastian, just keeps it firm the whole time. Now, these stats could be shown. I don't know whether it's shown on F1 TV, if it's shown on the broadcast that's brought to you by Sky or wherever you get your broadcast from. But I would like to see that data. I want to see their heart rate. I want to see what's going on. And they can share it and we can all look at it and go, right, we see what kind of stress these guys are under. And you can even use it for strategy and go, listen, Max is under the pump. His heart's ticking away. But you'll actually be able to see and show how much of an athlete these guys are. Sure, they just sit in a car dealing with 5.5 to 6 G forces laterally in the braking and acceleration. Probably not that high for acceleration, but definitely with braking and cornering, you can actually demonstrate and show just how extreme these cars are. Show the temperatures, show the heart rate, at least give us that kind of data. And it'll give an insight as to how extreme this sport is. And right now, I'm about to sit back and watch Free Practice 1 in the Jeddah Grand Prix of Saudi Arabia. Enjoy the race. Enjoy Formula 1. This is race 2 of 23 coming up. I will talk to you next week with a wrap-up of this Grand Prix and then one after that leading into the Australian Grand Prix. Enjoy the race and I'll talk to you soon.